Sometimes I sit by my window in the late afternoon when the day is starting to soften, and I notice the way happiness seems to flutter in and out of my thoughts like a butterfly in a garden. The light paints long shadows on the floor, the air carries a distant murmur of the world winding down, and there's a quiet strength in knowing that this feeling, this contentment, doesn't depend on anything outside of this room. It lives here with me. I didn't always feel like this. For years, I chased happiness as if it were a destination, a prize to be won at the end of a long and arduous race. There was always another goal to reach, another milestone to achieve, another person's approval to earn. But with time, and the quiet wisdom that age brings, I learned that a happy life isn't about collecting moments of triumph. It's about cultivating an inner garden of peace, a resilience that can weather any storm. Today, I want to share a simple but profound truth that I and many others I've spoken with on this journey have come to understand. It isn't a secret formula, it's a gentle shift in perspective. Did you know that over 70% of people believe their happiness depends on things outside of their control? They wait for the perfect job, the ideal partner, or a bigger bank account, thinking that once they arrive, joy will finally be theirs to keep. We're taught from a young age to look outward for our fulfillment, to measure our worth by what we have and what we've accomplished. It's a story told in movies, sung in songs, and sold to us in countless advertisements. But what if that story has it all backward? What if the most profound and lasting happiness isn't something you find, but something you create? This isn't just a comforting thought. It's the very foundation of a truly contented life. The truth is, happiness is an inside job. It's about the mindset we choose to cultivate, the thoughts we nurture, and the grace we give ourselves. It's a quiet revolution that happens not in the world around us, but in the world within us. External circumstances will always ebb and flow like the tide, sometimes high, sometimes low, but the bedrock of inner peace can remain unshaken, a constant source of strength and serenity. It's a journey not of seeking, but of becoming. For so long, I believed in the great myths of happiness. I thought if I could just achieve a certain level of success in my career, I would feel validated and complete. I poured my energy into climbing a ladder, only to find that the view from the top was surprisingly empty. The thrill was fleeting, quickly replaced by the pressure to climb even higher. I also placed my happiness in the hands of others, believing that a perfect relationship would be the key to unlocking a lifetime of joy. I looked to my partner, my friends, and my family to fill a void that, in truth, only I could fill. This created an immense pressure on my relationships, turning them from sources of mutual support into a one-sided quest for fulfillment. And of course, there was the myth of material wealth. I convinced myself that a more beautiful home, a newer car, or the latest gadget would bring me a deeper sense of satisfaction. Each new acquisition provided a temporary spark, a flicker of excitement, but it never lasted. The novelty would fade, and I would soon find myself looking for the next purchase, the next shiny object to chase. This endless pursuit left me feeling exhausted and unfulfilled, as if I were running on a treadmill, constantly moving but never truly arriving. I was caught in a cycle of if-onlys, if only I had more money, if only I had more recognition, if only my life looked more like someone else's. Each of these beliefs was a beautiful, convincing illusion, promising a shortcut to a promised land that didn't exist. They kept me focused on the external, always looking outside myself for a peace that could only be found within. The shift began slowly, not with a grand revelation, but with small, intentional practices. I started with gratitude. Every morning before the day's worries could take hold, I would take a moment to notice 3 small things I was thankful for. The warmth of the sun on my face, the taste of my morning tea, the simple comfort of my favorite chair. This simple act began to retrain my brain, teaching it to scan for the good instead of constantly focusing on what was lacking. It didn't erase my problems, but it changed their size and power, placing them in the larger context of a life that was already full of small wonders. Then, I began to explore mindfulness, not as a complex meditation practice, but simply as the art of being present. When I washed the dishes, I focused on the feeling of the warm water on my hands. When I walked outside, I paid attention to the sound of the leaves rustling in the wind. By anchoring myself in the present moment, I found a refuge from the anxieties about the future and the regrets of the past. I realized how much of my life I had been living in my head, lost in a stream of thoughts. Mindfulness brought me back to my body, back to my senses, and back to the only moment that truly exists, the now. Alongside this came the practice of self-acceptance. For years, I had been my own harshest critic. I learned, slowly and imperfectly, to speak to myself with the same kindness and compassion I would offer a dear friend. I began to accept my flaws, forgive my mistakes, and embrace my whole self, the messy parts, the uncertain parts, and the parts that were still healing. This wasn't about giving up on growth. It was about realizing that I was already worthy of love and acceptance, exactly as I was. The most profound moment of clarity didn't arrive with a thunderclap, but with a quiet, unshakable knowing. It was the realization that my happiness was, and always had been, my own responsibility. It wasn't a burden, but a liberation. For the first time, I understood that I held the paintbrush and the canvas of my own emotional life. My personal choices, my daily perspectives, and the stories I told myself were the pigments that colored my reality. True, lasting joy wasn't about having a perfect, storm-free life. It was about learning to dance in the rain. It was about choosing to see the lesson in the struggle, the strength in the vulnerability, and the beauty in the imperfection. This insight transformed everything. I stopped waiting for life to give me reasons to be happy and started creating them for myself. I found joy not in grand achievements, but in the quiet, everyday rituals: a walk in nature, a meaningful conversation, a moment of silent reflection. I realized that happiness isn't a static state to be achieved, but a dynamic living process. It's a muscle that grows stronger with use. The power to shape my own joy wasn't out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. It was within me all along, a gentle, persistent light waiting for me to turn my attention toward it. It was the understanding that no matter what happened in the world outside, I had a sanctuary within myself that I could always return to, a place of peace that was entirely my own. So, let's remember this simple truth. The world will always present us with challenges and distractions, pulling our attention outward. But the most profound sources of contentment are not found in what we acquire or achieve. Lasting happiness is cultivated internally through gratitude, mindfulness, and a gentle acceptance of who we are. It's a quiet practice, a personal journey back to ourselves. It is, and always will be, an inside job. I'd love to hear from you. Please share your own experiences with finding happiness from within in the comments below. Your story could be the light that helps someone else on their path. And if this resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and explore my other videos on reflections on life and inner peace. There's more to feel, more to learn, and more to heal together.